Welcome to Plant Empowered Fitness, a podcast for amazing, ambitious women like you who are ready to get in the best shape of their lives. Your host, nutrition and fitness coach, Tamara Marie, will show you how to transform your body with optimal plant-based nutrition and pain-free muscle toning techniques so you can burn body fat, shrink your waistline, and boost your energy without suffering through hours of intense cardio. In every episode, you'll get simple, actionable advice so you can thrive at 35, be fierce over 40, and fabulous at 50 and beyond. Here is your host, Tamara Marie.
Welcome to another episode of the Plant Empowered Fitness Podcast. I'm your host, Tamara Marie, and I am super excited about today's episode. I'm going to be sharing a conversation with you that I had with Miss Donnetta Gardner. She is 56 years young, and she is a vegan bodybuilder. And I know you're probably thinking, you have a lot of bodybuilders on your show. But I think her story is a testament to how you can get fit no matter how old you are. You know, I talk about, I started bodybuilding at age 40. She started in her 50s and really is in the best shape of her life at 56. Better than her 20s, better than her 30s. And I can say the same thing, after 40 is when I got into the best shape of my life. I'm stronger and leaner than I have ever been. So even if you don't have aspirations of getting on the stage in a little tiny sparkly bikini, there is still so much that you can learn from Donnetta's story. We talk about why she decided to become vegan in the first place, how that helped her with a lot of health issues she was experiencing, and her experience as a bodybuilder, because I think it really does help you learn how do you actually go about building muscle, getting stronger, getting leaner, and also deal with fat loss and the real balance that you need to strike to be able to do that effectively. And bodybuilders, we just happen to be pros at that, but there are definitely principles from this that you will be able to apply to your nutrition and fitness routine. So I hope you enjoy my conversation with Miss Donnetta Gardner. Hi, Donnie. Welcome to the Plant Empowered Fitness Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So I have seen you on Instagram. I know you share a lot about your story and fitness and just being plant-based, and you share a lot about just like the mindset around fitness. So I want you to just share a little bit with our audience just tell us about yourself, where you're from, and then how you got into this entire fitness journey yourself.
Yes, I love telling this story. For me, I've been someone who's worked out since college. So after college, I did the freshman 20. By the time senior year, it was probably 30 pounds, like a lot of us. Started working, started eating, and just, I was a vegetarian at the time. And as the weight was coming on, I was like, okay, I need to do something. And just really started fitness back then. It's not the fitness of today, but getting doing step aerobics. I started doing group classes. Started teaching, was certified, training folks. So that was my beginner steps of fitness. Fast forward to, after 2 kids, married for 20 years, divorced, lost my father. So just a bunch of things happening all in short period of time, hitting 50. So I feel like I say a renewed approach to wellness, because I became a vegan at 49 and just changed the way I started looking at health and fitness and the holistic approach to it. So started yoga and meditation and had the bodybuilding in the back of my head. And then a year ago, jumped into the bodybuilding scene, had a really great experience, and now I'm hooked. But my mother did her first and only bodybuilding at 50. So it was in my head when I turned 50, oh, is that something you want to do? But you have to it has to be personal. You have to really want to do it, not just because someone else did it. So 55 rolled around. I was looking at some coaches, met with a few coaches, and really said, all right, I'll be 56 soon. I'm currently 56. I'll be 57 in a couple of weeks. So once January of my 55th year came, I was like, could I do this now? Found a perfect coach And I just decided to go for it. And it was so amazing because my personality, I am, um, I'm not going to say rigid, but I love like order. I'm an attorney by profession. So what works really well for my brain is, um, there's a method to it. If you stick to the method, to the steps, then you come out on the other side. So I didn't doubt it. My coach kept telling me, no one is done, like you're really doing well, because I did everything. She was so amazed, like week 1, week 2, the first month afterwards, she's like, no hiccups. I'm like, no, there's a goal.
So you didn't find it to be really restrictive or strict, because that was like just having that order and structure in place and seeing the result. You were just kind of bought into like, this is something you really wanted to do.
Yeah, I felt, well, the restrictions, it's not easy, especially because I didn't realize how protein deficient I was. My hardest thing about the journey of bodybuilding is I have been a vegetarian for 30 plus years. Cheese was my thing. So when I became a vegan at 49, before my show, I had been a vegan for, 6 years, and thought I was doing okay. When my coach introduced me to the whole macros and looking at where I should be, it was an eye opener for me. Like I wasn't getting the protein that I needed. So it was difficult for me to put it all together, to prepare the macro, what I needed to have each meal. So that was probably the hardest part, but I didn't feel like it was restrictive for me. I know people have different. I think my coach did a really good job, and I was someone who was eating before. I know you coach. I always hear coaches say how sometimes people who tend to be quote unquote lean, you may not be eating that much. You may be on a 1,200 calorie diet or something. So you go into the show or you go into prep, there's a lot less to work with for starting from that starting place. For me, I feel like, the eating, getting the protein in, that was my biggest thing, just adjusting the way I was looking at how I was eating. So it was a wonderful eye-opening experience in the sense of looking at my diet, because I didn't feel deficient. I was running, I was a runner, I'd done, a couple marathons, half marathons. So I just thought I was A-okay. And I was picking up some of the weight, probably in the last 2 years, maybe around 53 is where I started feeling a little bit of, I can't just eat, the way that I was eating. So yeah, it wasn't easy. So the restriction of prepping, it wasn't easy, the eating, but I guess what was easy about it is there was a formula to it, sticking to the formula and knowing, that was really good for me, for my personality.
So then talk about the protein thing, because that's the number one question I think every vegan gets. It's like, where do you get your protein? So when you were in prep, and I know that was a challenge for me too, because my first season, it was very difficult when I got deep into prep, because I just didn't know how to make the macros work. And it was very hard for me for a few weeks there. And my coach at the time was not vegan. So they really couldn't give me, like an actual meal plan. And at that time I was just like, look, I can't think straight right now. Like I had prep brain. I was like, please just tell me what to eat. So for you then, going through prep, where did you get your protein from? What did you rely on as like your staples as you were in prep?
My staples, tofu, tempeh. I would make my own seitan. And I used to buy seitan. So it was good finding out, how to make it myself. I can do it in bulk. So it was the tofu, tempeh, seitan, protein powders. I try to stay away from a lot of the bars and stuff. A lot of that gives me digestive issues. But I would say my staples were tofu. I love tofu. I know, tofu and tempeh, I do all the time. And then the seitan. The seitan to me gives you the most bang for buck. that's the right person. You know, you get so much protein from it, whereas with tofu, you're going to get some more fat in it. So yeah, those are my staples though. Tofu, tempeh, seitan were the main ones. Some of the stuff that quote unquote the vegans, you know, like the Impossible Burgers and that sort of thing. Now I would, you know, occasionally have that, but I really had to. That was something that I did turn to before prep that I moved away from because it fit in the macros, and you know, it's not as healthy anymore.
The fat content.
Yeah.
The fat content in Impossible Burger is not going to fit in when you're in prep. That is not going to happen.
Nope.
So how low did your calories get, or what were your macros when you were in prep, if you remember?
I think my macros, I got to, I think the lowest I was maybe like 1,400 calories, 200 carbs, 30 something fat, like 140, 160. It changed depending on if I was a training day or not a training day.
I am curious for you, how did things go? So first of all, you started at age 55, which I think is amazing, first of all. You started competing. So when was your first show? What category did you compete in? And then how did you handle that like post-show period?
Oh, the post-show. So my first show was in August of 2023. So it was the OCB Presidential. I was 55. I was in a bikini. So I did obviously all of the novice and debut and open and 50, 35 plus, and the masters 50.
Masters, yeah.
I did all of those. I felt really good about that show. The nerves, I think the biggest thing, the first show, is not knowing what to expect. So just the whole day. It's amazing. So that first day, you know, you have your coach there and all the ladies. I mean, I was amazed by the camaraderie that's in back. You know, people like, oh, let me fix this for you. Or someone has something, they sat down and something stuck on their leg. So I was surprised by that. But that was a good experience. The nerves, you know, not knowing was a thing. But then once you go out, that first, I don't know if I forget the order that it's in, but that first, like you go out and you come back and you're like, okay, and then you do it again, then you do it again. And after that show was done, I was like, oh, wow, I wish I'd done this a little differently, like in terms of posing or the way that I, you know, walk, those sort of things. Love the judges' feedback, that sort of thing. And then that night, I had like 2 cinnamon buns from Cinnaholic, and it's a regional. They have them here in Maryland, but it's a vegan without advertising that they're vegan. So I had 2 Cinnabons. I think I had Mexican or some like really fattening, delicious meal that night. The next morning, it was one of my favorite like vegan diner meals, pancakes, vegan eggs, vegan sausage. You know, so I did put it on. I did go a little crazy. I did, and my coach said not to do what I did do. So that's where I will say I'll admit like that, I think. But I was so disciplined up until that point that when she gave me kind of like a free that night and then on Sunday, I went for it. I didn't get sick though. So I mean, it was fun.
Yeah. So okay. So you had your sort of celebration meal. You had your cinnamon buns, and you had your you had your breakfast the next day. Did you find it then hard to get back to like some type of reverse diet, or how did you handle that? Because I do think that is pretty common. Like I know, and a lot of people, unless you go through this, it's really hard to explain. It doesn't matter how disciplined you are. But at a certain level of body fat, your hunger hormones are off the chain. And even if you thought you were hungry before and that you had dieted, after a show, I think because your hormones are so off, that coupled with the fact that the psychology of, I just got off stage and now I'm done. There is something in the brain that goes, oh, we were doing all of this discipline stuff because we had this goal of getting on stage. Now I've been on stage, so let's just let it loose, right? Like, I think that I do not know a competitor that has just been like, oh, and the next day I just stuck to my macros perfectly. And then everything was great. And I gained a half a pound a week. Like, I don't know that person. You might be that, though. Let's see if you're the
I'm not that
unicorn.
person.
So
I'm
after
not
the
that person.
breakfast,
No, I'm definitely not that person.
how did you manage that? Like,
Yeah.
did you continue to overeat, or did you like finally come back to like some normalcy? And how long did it take you? Hey, it's Tamara Marie. I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. I just want to take a brief moment to let you know about a new supplement specifically designed for women 40 and over. We all know how important it is to fuel our bodies with plant-based protein and carbohydrates, especially after we've had an intense workout. But as we get into our 40s and 50s and beyond, that same workout that we could crush when we were 21 is going to take us longer to recover from now. When I started bodybuilding at age 40, I realized I needed a little bit of help if I was going to keep training at the level that I needed to become a pro. But I have to confess, I hate taking pills and powders, and I was spending hundreds of dollars experimenting with supplements and trying to keep them all stocked in my kitchen. Once I nailed down my supplement stack, I worked with a manufacturer to get high quality ingredients to put them all into one tasty treat. I developed the Fit 40 formula Sculpt and Tone gummies to help boost your metabolism, increase your strength and power in your workouts, and promote rest and recovery. They contain creatine and plant-based omega-3s with algae oil. They also contain sea moss, which provides dozens of minerals that you need to promote thyroid health. If you want to try Sculpt and Tone gummies, go to fit40formula.com. That's fit40formula.com, and you'll get a discount off your first order. Now back to the episode.
So for me, I had two other shows. So I won't do it this way next time. So I had a show in August, a show in September, and then a show in October. So after those 2 days, I did go right back to the regimen, only because for me, the biggest thing is if I'm not prepared, that was keeping me like, all right, I just like ate all this stuff Saturday and Sunday, but come Monday, I went right back to my program, and then the next show, and then the last show in October. That's where, like you said, I had that. I think the 2 days turned into maybe 4 days. I wasn't eating the way I was initially right after the show, but I definitely was not keeping I call myself keeping my macros, but I was not. I was definitely going outside of that. And then in my head, just from, the research that I know in terms of reversing out and just my coach, I got a hold of it in a couple of days. And she kind of gradually, I stuck with my coach for about 6 weeks after my last show. And what she did, we did check-ins, and we gradually kind of upped my my calories and my macros changed. I got to a place where it was like, okay, and then if I knew a few months afterwards, if I was going to go out drinking, not that I don't do that often, but if I'm going out drinking and eating or going out of town, I don't sweat it, I know I'm supposed to pick up weight. That's one of the hardest things for people to get to realize, that after it's all done, if you want to do this again, or if you don't want to do it again, you can't look the way you looked on stage. Yeah. And I know people want to hold on to that. Like I've had one-on-one conversation with folks, and I'm like, the scale's gone up, and I'm about 20 pounds heavier than I was on the stage, but I'm working out, I'm building muscle, and you kind of have to keep in mind like what the goal is. And if you know that you're building muscle, you have to know that you're going to pick up weight. And there's going to be a little fat that comes with that. And because I look at it that way, I'm not freaking out when I get on scale, so.
No, I think that's a good mindset to have. And I think that number on the scale means a lot less when you're a bodybuilder, just because it's all about weight, the way you look on stage, right? And your measurements and how full your muscles are, like how much symmetry you have. Like these are the things that the sport is looking at. Not just like, it's like no one is backstage like checking your body fat percentage, right? Like there's no scale backstage unless you're doing like actual bodybuilding, and sometimes they do have weigh-ins for that just to make your class, but that's not typically in OCB. I know they don't do that. So it's not like anyone is checking the numbers. Everyone is like, it's all about what you look like. But I do think there is that thing you have in your head, like you know what your stage weight was, and the further you stray from that, you tend to just feel like, oh man, I don't, this isn't right. Like I used to be in this body, and now I'm in this whole other body, right, in a very short time. So for you, was it? Well, first of all, you look great, by the way. So I just want to say that.
Thank
Like
you.
on
Mm,
off season,
yeah.
you look amazing. So how did you manage that, the psychology of it? Like, did you find that in that process of like gaining weight, like how long did it take you to get to that like 20 pounds over your stage weight? And through that time period, did you feel like, oh, I'm really big, I'm letting myself go, and I'm fat or whatever? Or did you just kind of feel like, oh, this is like normal, I'm still working out, I still look good, this is just part of the process? Like, how was your psychology through that reverse period?
Okay, this is the honest answer. um,
That's what I
Honestly,
want.
I had those thoughts. Like, so I'm a person who in prep, you're getting on the scale every day, So, but in terms of prior to prep, I'm an anti-scale person. So I raised a daughter. Like I didn't have a scale in my house. I was really big on like not focusing on the weight. However, prep, getting to the stage afterwards. So it took 6 months, but like I recently was on a scale and I was like, wow, it's 20 pounds because I was at about 18 pounds. So that means like a couple more pounds I picked up. And honestly, I don't care. I mean, I'm going to say this happens to most 98% of people. There's no way that the thought doesn't come across. So the thought comes in my mind, you get on the scale and you're like, oh, wow, okay, I think this is too much. Like, this is 20 pounds. Like that's a lot of weight. And then, you were noticing that you're softer,
Yes.
but because I'm telling myself, I know that I need this for my next season, like, okay. So in all honesty, I freak out. The initial thoughts come and I get a little like freaked out. Like, wow, I'm not sure it's supposed to be this amount of weight, like it could be 10 pounds. And you read some people off season or improvement season, they may stick at 10 pounds over what they were a stage weight. So I had to get out of not thinking about like what everyone else is doing and just say to myself, this is okay. Like really look at yourself. You're fine. But my initial thoughts are a little freaky when I see the scale, honestly. But as soon as those thoughts come, I have this other part of me that I kind of keep there, like get it together, like snap out of it, get it together. This is okay. So that's my approach. But it does sometimes, I won't say bother, but it triggers me to get on the scale sometimes and see that weight because it's yeah.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your honesty with that too, because I think that another thing people don't realize is when they see bodybuilders, they're like, but you guys look great. Like I just said, I know you look amazing. I've seen you on Instagram, I've seen your videos. But in our mind, we're comparing ourselves to this standard that we didn't have before we got on stage, right? Now that you've got on stage, you've kind of reset your expectation for yourself because you're like, I know I can do that. I've done it before. But also, I think one thing we don't realize is that we are supposed to have more body fat. And when we diet that hard and then we come back into like a normal body, everyone else is like, you look great. And we're like, ooh, I don't know. But at the same time, your body is like, excuse me, crazy person. Like, we need to function here. So we need to keep some fat around. And we are not going to let you just starve us like you did before. So I think some of that is just like your metabolic adaptation, right? That's like the scientific way to explain it, but it is really like your body adapting to how you're treating it. And I think that part of that mindset, it's really big that like you have something to check yourself against instead of just like going in a downward spiral about the number. And I know I've had clients where maybe they ate a little bit more over the weekend or in the scale went up 2 pounds. I'm like, look, unless you ate like 7,000 calories above normal, which is hard to do, like I'm guarantee you that is not body fat. Like it's water retention or it's other stuff. So it's like part of that, like that mind game with the number, it's like, I know it throws a lot of women off. But at the same time, I'm on the fence about it because I'm like, but we can't act like and I'm sorry, I just don't believe healthy at any size, right? Like, I think there is a size at which there's a medical issue. It's not a judgment about like your moral character. It's not a judgment about what you look like. You can be beautiful at any size, but you really can't be healthy. There's a too lean and there's a too big for every person. And I think bodybuilders, we've learned, are too lean because like we can't stay at stage weight year round. But the other side of that coin is there is a weight at which all of us are not healthy. So I can't get with that. I think it's like this healthy balance. Like, because sometimes the scale is telling you, like, hey, because your doctor tells you you're on the scale, not to fat shame you, but to say, you are going to have diabetes if you continue, right? It's not meant to be a judgment. So I think that, but the culture is so tough on women that we can't separate the health from, you know, our self-esteem to, you know, what we think about, just like, again, how we're judging other people. And I think it just can be a minefield. So I commend you on finding a way through it and a balance, but I know it's not easy. So I appreciate your honesty, because I think a lot of people look at you, and even me sometimes, they're just like, what are you guys talking about? Like, you want to see a number on the scale? I'll show you a number.
Yes,
right?
you look amazing.
So,
yeah, I agree. You definitely know. Another thing too, I think is important to mention in terms of reversing out, especially if, like, one of the issues that I did have while reversing was my hormones. So I've already gone through. I had a hysterectomy at 50. I went through menopause, the sweats, the hot flashes, the whole thing. I had about 3 years of that. So when I went through, prep getting the stage, I really didn't, I was fine, even though my coach kept checking in, like, how's this and how that. So I felt really good in it. But when I reversed out, it all came back. I had night sweats, hot flashes. I had a couple, I would say about 3 or 4 months of something I was totally over. And it was hormonal. My body, like you said, was saying, hey, okay, here we get back to it. And now it's that 20 pounds, it's settled itself. Like, I'm, feeling good. And I definitely was concerned. I was getting a little palpitating. All the signs that I had when I was going through menopause kind of came right back to me after I was, reversing out of mine. So that's something for me to keep in mind, like, next time on. But I do want to mention it because I don't know how, if lots of women experience that. I know in general there's some hormonal fluctuation, but for me, having gone through menopause already and then having to go through it again, or not through it, but a similar hormonal response thing was a lot, an adjustment.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because even women who are younger who compete, some of them get so lean that they end up losing their cycle altogether. And then the other side of that is reversing out of it. They do end up getting it back. Sometimes it takes a while though, right? Even for like someone in their 20s or 30s. So that makes a lot of sense to me that you would say like you went through this sort of like reverse period of going back through that hormone change, because it is an adjustment. And I think it has a lot to do with the body fat percentage, because as your body fat percentage is low, your hormones are fat soluble, so they don't really have anything to function off of if you're very, very low. So as you're bringing your body fat back up, you'll find that your hormones start working again. I know I found that even when I was in prep, I had actually increased my fat on my own just because I had a brain fog like constantly, and my calories were probably around where yours were, but my fat was really low. And I was just experimenting with it. I was doing some research and I was like, you know what? I'm going to change my own macros. I'm not telling my coach because I don't want to have the conversation. And I swear to you, the minute I got some fat in my body, my brain started working again. And then all of a sudden it was like, I think one of my show days and my cycle just comes back. I was like, what is happening? Like, there is something to that, right? Like that, that fluctuation, it's real. Like, it definitely happened to me. And I was so confused. I was like, oh, what just happened here? I was like, but I noticed, like, it just felt like night and day. Just adding like 10 more grams of fat a day, which meant I had to be lower on my carbs, but it was just like a breath of fresh air, because like my brain was like, oh, vitamin D can work again. Oh, estrogen can work. Like, all these little things that went offline are now back on, and now I'm functional. So it's real, I couldn't tell you because I didn't like take my hormone levels through the process, but like my experience of it was absolutely, I could tell night and day. Like, after like 2 days having some fat in my diet, I was like, oh, that's what my brain needs to eat. It's really funny. So I wanted to switch gears and ask you about what made you go vegan, because you mentioned that you were vegetarian for years. You were starting to see your weight creep up at certain times, like when you were in college, and then as you were, I think you said like around 50 or so, and then you started seeing your weight come up a little bit. So when you were 49, I think you said, what was it that made you make the transition from vegetarian to vegan?
Honestly, so I started doing research on, my doctor had told me years before. So I had a bunch of, I have allergies. I used to be someone that took shots when I was a teenager. So just always congested. So the biggest thing for me, like a lot of people who are vegetarian, making that leap to become a vegan was ice cream and cheese. I love cheese, like cheese, cheese, cheese. But what I found is that the cheese, it's the fat, like my body, because you know I'm aging, things are, I was starting to, my body was starting to change because I was still intaking the same amount of like eating half of a pizza, like stuff I can't even think of. Like now, this today, I can't imagine eating a whole like pizza or even half of a pizza in one sitting. Like it sounds ridiculous to me just to even think, like two slices maybe, but half a pizza. So I just think I was like, the cheese and ice cream really was one of those things that, okay, what can I cut out? Because you know how like men to me, I had a colleague, so a colleague of mine at the time stopped drinking soda. He would have delivered like the 2 liters. He would have a bunch of 2 liter sodas in his office. So he was a
Mhm.
pretty big guy, or whatever. He cut just soda out of his diet and dropped like 40 pounds in like half a year or something. It was crazy. So the
Wow.
concept of like
Wow.
not drastically changing my diet, but let's see what happens if I just really try the vegan thing. Because I knew the
Hmm.
holdup for me was cheese, really cheese and
Yeah.
ice cream. The dairy was the thing. So I was like, oh, let me cut out the dairy and see how I do. And just by cutting out the dairy, I had fewer sinus infections because I would get a sinus infection yearly. Like every year I had a sinus infection. And my allergist was like, probably try cutting out and I wasn't having skin problems, but she was like, you'll notice a difference in your skin, your hair, like it will impact so many things. So, and she wasn't, she wasn't a vegan herself. She just was like, cut out some of your dairy. And I was like, I'm not doing dairy. I don't even drink regular milk. I don't do this. I'm just doing cheese and ice cream. And that was the hardest thing. I cut those out and everything else fell right into place. I really didn't have a hang up. I was never really a chicken, like a meat eater, because that whole vegetarian lifestyle, I had it for so long. I was telling someone, I worked in a slaughterhouse, like when I was in high school, and I
Hmm.
only lasted one
Wow.
weekend. So I had gone to a school in Pennsylvania. I worked at this slaughterhouse, became a vegetarian like right after, like in a week. That was it. Um, so the vegan transition was not that difficult for me, I think, because I wasn't a meat eater. I wasn't, I would do salmon every once in a while, but I wouldn't call myself a pescatarian, but I would definitely do some seafood at a restaurant trip.
Yeah.
But it was the transition was tough with the cheese and the ice cream. But I started feeling good, no
Mhm.
sinus infections. I was hooked. I don't even think about going back now.
That's great. Yeah, I think it's interesting the cheese. So I think I had a similar thing. Like it was Pizza Fridays, like, and there was a very long time period where vegan cheese was like not good. It used to taste like cardboard. It didn't melt. But now there's like so many different vegan cheeses, and even like options for ice cream and like sour cream. Like there's like a whole plant-based dairy section now, right? So I think things
Yeah.
are very different now than they were like when you were vegetarian at first, and like same with me. Like I think the last time I had meat was like 98 or so. And even at that point, I was basically eating just fish, and I just like had something because it was just like we were all out, and I was like, well, I'm never gonna have it again. I might as well have some chicken. But even before that, I really wasn't eating meat. So, but yeah, it is interesting, like that transition. And I did want to ask you because you mentioned working at a slaughterhouse. That's how you became vegetarian. So, talk a little bit more about that. What was it about that experience that made you just decide to stop eating meat right away?
Oh, it was horrendous. I was just blown away. It was so much. There was a lot of blood. Like if people, I know people say you shouldn't like scare people straight, but it's like the cattle are like hanging. The floors have blood, and I was in the section where there was a packaging, so the stuff would come through. I was like all the way at the end, but the experience of the smell, what it looks like, it did it for me.
Wow, I couldn't imagine. I think that there is this big disconnect that in our culture we're so used to just like going to the food market, we see things wrapped up in like saran wrap and then it's on the grill and like we're so disconnected from the source of the food that I think that um a lot of people would have a similar reaction had they gone through that. And I know some of the most sort of staunch vegans that I've met have grown up on farms. You know, they're the ones where they named the farm animals and then someone told them, oh, well, that's going to be bacon tomorrow. And they're like, what, George? Like, what? Like, so I think that the culture, right? Like modern life, we're so far away from like the reality of where our food comes from that the fact that you had that experience, I think not a lot of people have had. And wow, I can imagine like just seeing that, just the visceral reaction of smelling that. Oh, like I couldn't, I don't know how you did it for even a week. I don't think I could have done it for a day.
I lasted a week, and I couldn't understand how it didn't bother other people. I'm like, wow. And even when I go into supermarkets now, kind of what you said, and you sometimes you can smell. I mean, that's not a good thing. It's probably not the best supermarket, but I've definitely gone in supermarkets and the scent of like meat, because they have an actual like butcher in the back, or they
Yeah.
rewrap some things. But definitely there's a smell where it's like, no,
Yeah. Yeah.
no desire.
Okay, so you had this transformation, you became vegetarian, you became vegan, kind of helped more with some of your health issues. It sounds like was your motivation there was just getting over, all of your inflammation, allergic reactions you were having to things. And then, becoming a bodybuilder. But you also mentioned that fitness has just been something that has gotten you through.
I think the biggest thing for me, and I say this to people, I say that I post about it a lot, but like fitness is my friend. And I feel like when people disappoint you or situations are tough and you're going through something mentally, like real stuff, if you turn to fitness, it like doesn't disappoint. It's like what you put into it, you get back. And in my opinion, you get back like twofold. And I'm not talking just about the physical, I'm talking about how you feel.
My last question for you is, what is your vision for maybe say 10 years from now? What would you like to see? What is 66 going to look like for you?
I think at 66, I would be a seasoned bodybuilder. I who knows how many shows I have under my belt at that point. I expect to have a pro card by then, way before then, hopefully. But challenging myself to just stick with it. I see myself as exploring. I love to travel. I love hiking. So I just kind of like not limiting myself. One of the things I just want to mention that you touched on is that comparing ourselves to our younger selves, yeah, we definitely don't need to do that. But I know that like right now, since I've started bodybuilding, I'm stronger than I've ever been. And I never did like the strength training. So because I was a person, when I look at a photo of me at the same weight, like, in my 20s, like, I'm just like thin. But now it's like, no, I definitely am stronger. So I am in what I would consider the best shape of my life. Although from an aesthetic standpoint, some may think that depending on, what aesthetic you like, that other 20-something person or even my 30s, like that may look good. But to me, I'm like, oh no, I'll take muscle any day because I feel empowered and strong, and it's powerful.
Absolutely. Yeah, I do think that's a big thing. It's not just like how you look, but also how you feel. And fitness is functional as well. It's not just about looking, showing off your muscles, but it's also like, can you take your own groceries in, right? Like, can you get up off the floor? There's just like basic things that people take for granted as we get older become harder to do. And if you have fitness, you have that habit, then you're able to kind of move and keep moving when other people are slowing down. So I love that you said that you're in the best shape of your life now. And that's a genuine thing. Because I think sometimes it can sound like something people just say to make you feel better. Like, you can get in the best shape of your life. It's like, really? But like, honestly, right? Like, authentically, like you are. And I think people don't get that it's more than just how you look. And I always say that the way you look is really just like a lagging indicator of how you've been treating yourself, right? That's the last thing to show up. The mindset and all that comes first. Like you said, that will to get up and just take that walk on the days when you don't feel like it, to go to the gym. And even if you're just going through the motions for a day or two, like just that you're still showing up for yourself, the way you look is an indication of that. And if you've been treating yourself poorly, you will look like you have been treating yourself poorly. So it's not purely aesthetic. I know as bodybuilders, it's hard to sell people on that idea, but it really is, it is how it's a reflection of our habits, right? Our daily habits. People don't just wake up looking this way, even with the best genetics, as we all know. You still have to put some work in, right? Especially as natural vegan athletes, right? Like, it doesn't come as easily to those who have a little bit of assistance, right? So I appreciate you and the message you're putting out there, and I look forward to seeing where you are and getting that pro card, doing masters and beyond with your bodybuilding career. So I'll be keeping an eye on you as well. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today. I appreciate your time today.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to continuing to follow you and see where it takes you as well.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Donnie. If you want to follow her on Instagram to get some inspiration on your fitness journey and to also just see her amazing physique, make sure you check out Fit and Fierce with Donnie. And I will include a link for that if you're watching this on YouTube in the description of the video. And if you're listening to the audio version of the podcast, scroll down to the description in the show notes and you'll be able to click on the link directly to her Instagram. But I hope that you learned something from her story, that you can really get fit at any age and you can make fitness a habit for you. It can be something that you turn to regardless of what's going on in your life to really begin to feel better. And the beautiful side effect is that you'll start to look better too. So I hope that you found this story inspirational. And if you are someone who is struggling with your weight, with your fitness, you don't like what you see in the mirror, you don't like the number on the scale, the doctor is telling you you've got to get your diet together or you're going to have to go on medication, or you might already be on medication. If you are looking for some help to get a handle on your health and fitness, please feel free to reach out to me at plantempoweredfitness.com. You can fill out an application there to see if coaching might be the next step for you. I do offer personalized one-on-one coaching. I specialize in working with women who are 40 and over, who are dealing with perimenopause, going through that phase, just wanting to get in the best shape of your life, getting more energy, recovering from stress, and also fitting fitness into a busy lifestyle. So if any of this resonates with you, please feel free to reach out. We are on Instagram at Plant Empowered Fitness. You can go to plantempoweredfitness.com if you want to apply for coaching and learn some more of the stories of our clients who have had success with the busiest of schedules, with all sorts of challenges, from health conditions to physical injuries. I know I've had my share of those too. Whatever your situation, you can make improvements, and I look forward to being your partner in that journey if you think that might be a good next step for you. As always, wishing you a happy and healthy rest of your day and a beautiful week ahead. Hope to see you on the next episode of the podcast. Until next time.
Thank you for listening to the Plant Empowered Fitness Podcast. Connect with us on Instagram at Plant Empowered Fitness. To find out how we can help you meet your personal health and fitness goals, go to plantempoweredfitness.com. That's plantempoweredfitness.com.